Everybody, this is Dream, and we have a nice slate here for NFL on Sunday. This is the 1 p.m. main slate. You get the day games on Sunday afternoon. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Helps the channel quite a bit. Really appreciate, guys. We just went over 300 subscribers this week. I really do appreciate all you guys. Also, special shout outs to the people on Patreon. Really appreciate you guys as well. Everybody make sure to check that out. Also make sure to check out Discord, link in the description. I also got a new Twitter now. It's available description as well. So with that said, let's get into this set of games. We actually have quite a few quarterbacks that are kind of questionable or out, so that's interesting to this week. Some concussions and stuff like that. But regardless of that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at four guys I think are gonna be really potentially solid this week. And first, we're gonna look at Patrick Mahomes for Kansas City against Jacksonville. He's been extremely good this season, as you know, I'm sure. And his price point is still pretty good, even though it's pretty expensive. Obviously, it's still good for what he's doing. He hadn't had a bad week in quite a while either. And Jacksonville's defense, while they do have some good pass rushers, he should be able to dominate there. They don't have particularly great, against wide receivers and stuff. So I really like him on the slate. Then we're going to look at Daniel Jones for the Giants. Now, they had a rough week, I think, last week, but he should be able to bounce back here. He's a good value option on this particular slate. You know, he's not going to get you 40 fantasy points, but he's still going to be good. Even he destroyed Jacksonville, which is why I like Patrick Mahomes so much this week. And then Justin Fields for Chicago against Detroit. Now, Detroit's not very good against quarterbacks, and he's had some really big games lately. He's playing really well, and so I really do like him on the slate, especially at this really cheap price point. And then Tua for Miami against Cleveland. You know, he's had a little bit of up and down year, but he should be able to get going here now that he's back and feeling good. And I like the matchup here against Cleveland, who has been okay at against pass, but Tua is really starting to get real good rapport with his receivers, and he's throwing the ball more, and he's getting lots of yards, and that's the kind of guy I like. And at this price point, he's a little bit too cheap. And if you need to pay in the 65 to 7,000 range, then him and Justin Fields both look really solid this week. In the running back position, we have quite a few good options here. First, going to start with Dameon Pierce. Now, he's questionable, but I do think he's probably going to play here this week. It looks like he's not like real injured, and he's been extremely good lately. As you can see, he's had I think 7 straight weeks of 15 or 14 or higher fantasy points. So I really like him on the slate. He should get an opportunity, and the Giants, this game probably be a decent scoring game as well. So then we're gonna look at Derrick Henry for Tennessee against Denver. Now Denver's defense is pretty decent, but he's a matchup-proof running back, and he's been running absolutely great since week 3, and I expect him to continue that. He's even done it against some good teams as well, so it's a great opportunity for him to have another gigantic game. One of my favorite running backs on the slate, and then we have Saquon Barkley. He's been a little bit more inconsistent than Henry has, just because of the upside he has, I guess, but he's a good secondary option off of Henry if you want to go with him. He's got a good matchup here against Houston, who's been giving up a lot. He's probably not as likely to have a massive yards day as Henry does, but he still is a really good play on the slate. Then we're going to look at Kamara for New Orleans. He's been pretty good most of the season, but he's been a little bit inconsistent so far. But I still think he's in a great spot here against Pittsburgh, who's just absolutely not good. And I expect him to have a really big day as a result. Then we're going to look at Etney for Jacksonville here. His price point's obviously coming up week to week. But he's still a good play. He's been, the last 3 weeks, he has been the major focal point. And so I expect him to continue to do that and get more and more rushes and keep getting 100-yard games, including a couple touchdowns. And he's got a good matchup here where he's going to have a lot of opportunity to do that. Josh Jacobs for Las Vegas is another guy like against Indiana now, or Indianapolis rather. He's been inconsistent this season, but he's still in a pretty good range. He should still be able to get 100 yards in this matchup, and I expect him to have a very good day here against Indianapolis. And then finally, Jamal Williams for Detroit. He should be the lead back, and he's going to get a ton of attempts, I think, in this one. He's not as good as most of the other guys, but he's a good cheap option if you just desperately need one. He should get some more opportunity in this game as well because of the injuries to the team and stuff. So, assuming that those things hold, he'll be a pretty decent play on the slate. Then we're going to look at wide receiver, and we're going to look at a Cooper Kupp here. I mean, what's not good about Cooper Kupp? He's a freaking great player. He's been absolutely balling out, so I expect him to continue that. Obviously, he's super expensive, so you're going to have some value guys in order to play him, but he's a great play on the slate. Then we're going to look at Stephon Diggs for Buffalo. We do need to make sure that, what the quarterback situation for Buffalo is before we utilize him, but overall, he's usually matchup proof, and I do like him on the slate. Probably even regardless of who the quarterback is. Deontay Johnson, he's a little bit inconsistent, but he has some upside in this matchup here against New Orleans. This game should be a little bit higher scoring, and he should get some more opportunities. His targets have risen in the last 4 weeks, and I expect that to continue, and I think he can pay off at a pretty cheap price point. Then Amon-Ra St. Brown. I feel like he's a little bit too cheap for what he can do. I know it's a little bit of a tougher matchup, but he does have some upside here. He's been up and down so far this season, but I do think he's in a good spot, and I expect him to have a good game. Then we're going to look at Tyreek Hill for Miami. Obviously, I'm a fan of Tua this week, and I expect Tyreek Hill to have another massive week since him and Tua seem to be playing pretty well together, and so I expect that to continue. I think he'll get 10 to 15 targets in this one and probably pull in a lot of them and get a decent chunk of yards. So that's what that's what I expect here, and that's he's a great play obviously. Matt Collins is a guy that I like this week. He's been inconsistent as well, but he does have some upside. He has had some big games, and he's getting more targets with all the injuries racking up on Las Vegas. Derek Carr's got to throw the ball to somebody. Might as well be this dude now. And then Christian Kirk finally for Jacksonville. He's another guy I like here. He looks like he's in a good spot against Kansas City. This game's going to have to, Jacksonville's going to have to throw the ball some in this one, and he's going to be a beneficiary of that. He's had a little inconsistency, but the last 3 weeks he's getting 7 or more targets in each game, and I expect him to do that. He also has touchdown potential in this one. Then we're going to look at tight ends, and we're going to look at Kelsey here for Kansas City. He's in a pretty good spot here. He's obviously pretty expensive for a tight end, but he's also pretty safe for a tight end as well. He's had some really good weeks every week this season. I expect that to continue here against Jacksonville, and Mahomes is my top quarterback, and he's going to be using Kelsey throughout this game. Then we're going to look at Freiermuth for Pittsburgh. Now, he's a cheap option. Obviously, he's very inconsistent, but he has been getting involved more and more as the season progressed, and getting more targets and stuff, and I expect him to get a decent amount of targets in this game, making him a viable option on this particular slate. Then we're going to look at Zach Ertz here for Arizona against the Rams. Now, I don't particularly love the pick because of the difficult defense he's going to go up against, but he's been really consistent this season. He even had a game against the Rams where he scored 10 fantasy points, and his price point is still pretty cheap. He's getting a decent amount of targets. Then we're going to look at Hawkinson for Minnesota. He's been up and down all season, but I've used him a couple times and he's paid off. But you have to get him in the right situations, and this is one of the situations where they're going to have to throw the ball more, where he's going to have some more opportunities. Then we're finally going to look at defenses, and we're going to start with the Saints defense against Pittsburgh. Where are you? All right, there it is. Now, obviously, Pittsburgh is one of the worst teams offensively, and the Saints, they can play good defense occasionally. They don't, they get a lot of sacks, but some of the other stuff they don't get as much of. But overall, they still have some good opportunity in this one because it could be a low-scoring game for Pittsburgh, and they should be able to take advantage of that team. The Giants are going up against Houston, and they have a pretty good opportunity here. They've actually been pretty solid defensively this season, as you can see. They also have forced a lot of fumbles, and I expect them to continue to try to do that in this matchup where they'll have some opportunities. Then the Titans against Denver. Denver just hasn't been good, and the Titans are a great sack team and a great team when it comes to interceptions. So I expect both of those things to play out here. They're overall probably one of the better defenses available on the particular slate. And then the Raiders here for Las Vegas against Indiana. The Raiders have been extremely up and down defensively this season, but this is a good matchup where they have an opportunity to have a really good day against a very young opponent. So with that said, guys, thank you guys for liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.